Okay, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our presentation today. We're going to be talking about some common nutrition myths and debunking a lot of those myths that you may or may not have heard. First and foremost, remember that the information in this presentation is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified medical professional, and it is not intended as medical advice. The presentation is intended, however, as a sharing of the knowledge and information from the research and the experience of myself, Dr. Michelle Gamble, and the experts who have contributed to making this presentation. We encourage you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with your qualified healthcare team. So let us begin. As I said, welcome, welcome. I am so happy that you are here today. But before we begin, just a little bit about me. I am Dr. Michelle Gamble, and as an integrative wellness specialist, I am healing-oriented healthcare provider who takes account the whole person, body, mind, heart, and soul, including all aspects of lifestyle. And I emphasize the therapeutic relationship, and I embrace the use of all appropriate therapies, both conventional and what we deem as quote unquote alternative. I teach strong, savvy, selfless people how to heal themselves, body, mind, heart, and soul, so that they can better serve the ones that they love from an empowered position of joy, health, and wealth. The reason why I am so passionate about teaching you how to heal yourself is because I understand what it means to be frustrated, fearful, confused, and just fed up with the system and wanting to have a better life. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, when it comes to nutrition, knowing what to eat, how much, and how often can be confusing. I think this is probably the most important challenge that my students face. Whenever they come to me, it's like, Michelle, what do I eat? I'm hearing so many different things from all over the place. We're constantly bombarded with media headlines and advertisements about what the latest trends are. But these messages don't always have our health in mind. I want you to think about some of the nutrition messages that you've heard recently that you were kind of surprised by. And how many of you have heard all calories are created equal? Well, sorry to tell you this, but they aren't. This is because the body uses and stores calories differently depending on the nutrients each food is comprised of. In order to understand why calories differ, let's take a look at different nutrients and how the body handles them. You may have heard that foods are being described in terms of density. This refers to different nutrients having more or fewer calories packed into the same weight and making them higher or lower calorie density. Calories in foods are grouped as fats, alcohol, carbohydrates, and proteins, according to our USDA. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. 1 gram of alcohol has 7 calories. 1 gram of protein has 4 calories. And 1 gram of carbohydrates, sugars and starches, have 4 calories. 1 gram of fiber, as estimated by the USDA, to have 1.5 calories. And while fiber is a type of carbohydrate, it is not easily digested by the body. This is why eating 300 calories of chicken is not the same as eating 300 calories of cake. Well, one of the reasons. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard this one. In fact, many people in using many popular diets that are based on the myth that carbs make us fat. I have so many people, they are scared to death of eating carbs. And what I tell people is, I don't sit there and count calories or any of that stuff. When I think about carbs, In reality, they are not the enemy, but there are different types of carbs that you should be aware of. Let's take a closer look at carbohydrates so that you can learn how to distinguish the good from the not so good. Carbs or carbohydrates are one of three macronutrients. Fat and protein are the others. Now, the primary function of macronutrients is to provide the body with energy. Dietary carbohydrates can be split into three main categories: sugars, such as sweets, short chain carbohydrates that are found in foods such as glucose, fructose, galactose, and sucrose. Another category of carbohydrates are your starches, and these are long chains of glucose molecules, which eventually get broken down into glucose in the digestive system. And then the third carbohydrate category is fiber. Now, humans cannot digest fiber, although the bacteria in the digestive system can make some good use out of them. The problem with carbs is when they are consumed in excess. The body turns carbs into fats to store them as a reserve energy source. Now, carbs are often referred to as simple or complex, whole versus refined. Whole carbs are generally considered healthy because they are unprocessed and contain the fiber that is naturally found in food. These carbs include things like vegetables, whole fruit, legumes, otherwise known as beans, potatoes, and whole grains. Whole food sources of carbohydrates are also commonly loaded with nutrients, and these nutrients are essential to our health and well-being, especially our mental health and well-being. Your B vitamins are coming from your whole carbs or your complex carbs. And that is why it is so critical to integrate these complex carbs into your daily regimen. Now, refined carbs, on the other hand, including sugar-sweetened beverages, juices, pastries, white bread, white pasta, white rice, and other things, these carbs are highly processed, meaning that the natural fiber has been removed and they have been associated with health problems such as obesity and type 2 diabetes. Additionally, refined carbohydrate foods are generally lacking in essential nutrients. And one other thing about these essential nutrients, they are also critical in terms of helping your body to metabolize the carbohydrates. So complex carbs also contain certain key nutrients like chromium, which is very, very critical for you to be able to properly metabolize sugar. And when you don't have sufficient chromium, when you don't have sufficient B vitamins, then there is an inability for the body to properly metabolize the carbohydrates in your system, the sugars in your system. And the other thing with fiber is that it helps your body to remove excess sugars, to remove excess fats from your body effectively. Now, just in case you're still a little unclear on which carbs are good for you and which carbs are not, here's a short list again. So good carbs, vegetables, all of them. It is best to eat a variety of vegetables every day. Whole fruits like apples, bananas, strawberries, etc. Legumes such as lentils, kidney beans, black beans, peas, stuff like that. Nuts. Yes, nuts have carbohydrates. Yes, yes, yes. Almonds, walnuts, hazelnuts, macadamia nuts, peanuts. Well, peanuts are really legumes, but anyway. Seeds such as chia seeds, pumpkin seeds. And remember, a lot of these seeds and nuts and things of that nature, they have that wonderful fiber version of your carbohydrates, which again helps to clean out the intestinal tract and helps to create a wonderful prebiotic fiber so that your probiotics or the good healthy bacteria in your gut can survive and thrive. And they, in combination with the fiber, create very important nutrients for your body. Whole grains, including things such as oats, quinoa, brown rice, etc. Millet, okay? Now, your not so good carbs, your bad carbs are your sugary drinks, your sodas, those vitamin water things, those speed drink things, fruit juices, etc. White breads, these are your refined carbohydrates that are low in essential nutrients. They have been stripped of their nutritional value, and they are bad for your metabolic health because it is like crack cocaine going straight to your bloodstream. And this applies to most commercially available breads. If you want to use breads, consider using things like sprouted grain breads that have significant amount of the complex carbs, which have the fibers, and they have been sprouted for easier digestibility. Other bad carbs include things like your pastries, your cookies, your cakes, because they tend to be high in sugar and utilizing refined flours. Ice cream. Yes, ice cream is yuck, 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 bad carbs. And most of the types of ice creams out there are very high in sugar, although there are some exceptions. Every now and then you'll find some. I actually found some really good ice cream the other day. It is a plant-based keto ice cream. And so it had none of that bad added sugar stuff. But of course, that's not really what most people are looking for because they want that sugar fix. Anyway, the other thing are things like French fries and potato chips. And even though whole potatoes, especially sweet potatoes, are healthy, when you fry them, not so good. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that complex are critical to your mental health because they help your body to create that dopamine, that happy feeling. So that's a lot of reasons when people get addicted to carbs, it's because it's triggering that dopamine production inside their bodies. Now, this is another myth. And this one is a little tricky because it depends on how you look at costs. When you're considering the overall cost of your health, it is clear that processed foods are more expensive. Filling your cart with fresh produce versus cheap frozen box meals can create the difference in your weekly grocery budget. However, a few bucks you save by purchasing unhealthy foods will end up costing you more in the long run. What we use to fuel our bodies determines how efficiently we burn energy. From feeling sluggish and fatigued all day to treating conditions associated with being overweight or even lost wages from being sick, all affect our bottom line. And spending a little bit more on healthier foods will save you money on healthcare costs. And even if you are not considering that big picture, the reality is, especially now, it is less expensive to buy whole foods than it is to buy packaged foods. Because in most cases, you're paying for all of that packaging. You're paying for the fancy names. You're paying for the fancy boxes and all of that kind of stuff. You're paying for all of these refinements, as opposed to getting your ordinary pack of beans, getting your ordinary bag of rice, getting your potatoes from the farms. All of these things are actually much less expensive, and they'll go a long way because they will fill you up. When you're eating refined foods, you'll notice that it's like you can't have enough, especially things like breads and pastas. You just want to keep eating and eating and eating and eating because they are addictive and they're not feeding your body. So your body's constantly giving you the message, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, because it's not receiving the nutrition that it's looking for. Now, countless reports have found how we eat impacts health, and spending a little more on healthy food can drastically reduce your healthcare costs. So, some tips for keeping your grocery bill down while eating healthier are: number one, first ask yourself, what is the most expensive thing that you buy? For many people, the answer will be either meat or dairy. By purchasing less of these items, you can use the found money on fresh produce. And this will also contribute to a healthier diet overall. If you're worried about protein, beans and quinoa and millet and eggs are cheaper than most meat products. Swapping some of your meat-heavy meals with plant-based alternatives can help you to cut down on costs, improve your health, and if you have a pantry filled with cookies and chips, well, reallocate that money into the produce section. Look for a local and seasonal produce area, and I guarantee that you will be spending too much money on out of season produce. So look for things that are local to your area. This means that you will have to slightly alter your diet according to what is in season. Shop in the discounted stores for produce. In this case, produce may have a slightly shorter storage time, meaning you have to use it up because they tend to be riper when they reach those particular types of stores. So that just means that you'll just prepare things while they're fresh and consume things sooner rather than later. And to reduce food waste, you will find that if you're constantly throwing away food, figure out why. Is the food going bad? Or are you simply buying too much at one time? And look at ways of buying and preparing the right amounts to help you cut down on your waste. So now, this is a hot topic, and people get into heated debates over this one because the fad of going gluten-free has exploded recently. The fact is, only 1% of the population has a genetic condition called celiac disease. Most people with this condition absolutely must avoid gluten at all costs. The only way to determine true gluten allergies is through medical testing. Now, while people with celiac disease need to ditch gluten, it may not be a trigger food for you. So there are certain people who don't have celiac disease, but do have a sensitivity to gluten, or they've had a system that has been compromised, AKA otherwise known as leaky gut. And so that also triggers a sensitivity to gluten. Now, if you suspect that gluten is causing you discomfort, I encourage you to try an elimination diet. Just know that gluten-free foods are not automatically healthier, and this is how they get you. A lot of quote unquote gluten-free foods are actually the worst things that you can eat because they're filled with all kinds of fillers and additives to make it taste good or to make it the texture that simulates the food that has gluten. So be very, very careful. In fact, gluten substitutes may actually increase caloric content and contribute to weight gain. So be careful. Now, when trying to watch our weight, the low-fat option may seem like the way to go, but unfortunately, your good intentions may leave you worse off. Low-fat is often synonymous with loaded with salt and cheap carbohydrates to make it taste good. So remember, fat is one of those beautiful elements that is used to carry flavor, to help things to taste good. So if they're going to remove the fat from the foods, what they're going to end up doing is adding all kinds of salt and flavors and other things to make it taste good, to make up for the fact that they have removed the fat. And as you remember, a high intake of carbs can be stored in the body as fat. So a lot of people who are trying to lose weight, they decide to go fat-free or low fat, and they actually end up becoming even more fat because they start to increase the amount of carbohydrates that they're consuming. And the other thing to consider is that fats are essential to healthy lifestyles. You need particularly your omega fatty acids, your essential fats, in order to promote proper health and well-being. You also need proper healthy fats in order to promote the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins such as vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. So be very, very careful with this myth in particular, because this has led many people astray and created a lot of major health complications because people have decided to go for these low or no fat diets. Now, this one is a biggie again, because it is actually true that yogurt containing live cultures is good for you. But unfortunately, most yogurt products that are out there are loaded with sugar, causing more harm than good. In fact, the added sugar promotes unhealthy gut bacteria growth. So Lactobacillus acidophilus is the bacteria that you want to look for, in particular in yogurts. Your best bet is to purchase plain yogurt if you're going to go the dairy route, or even if you do the alternative yogurts. But you want to make sure that you purchase it plain, and then you add your own flavor with berries, or with a little bit of honey, or a little bit of stevia, with a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of even putting in some nuts, putting in some chia seeds, some flax seeds, and things of that nature, so that you know that you are getting the healthiest version of yogurt that is going to do what you want it to do, which is to rebalance and promote a healthy gut. Now, there has been a lot of debate over the health of eggs over the past couple of years, and the verdict is in. Eggs are actually healthy. While it is true that the egg yolks contain dietary cholesterol, research has proven that the dietary cholesterol has almost nothing to do with your blood cholesterol levels. I'm going to repeat this one because it's a tricky one. The dietary cholesterol that's in egg yolks does not have a one-to-one correlation with the blood cholesterol levels. Many people don't realize that your cholesterol, when you look at your cholesterol on your lab report, the total cholesterol is actually a combination of several different components, including your triglycerides, your LDL, your HDL. And your LDL can be subdivided into different categories. And the reality is that a lot of times what produces an excess amount of cholesterol in the body is actually carbs. Yes. So go ahead. If you want to consume eggs, go ahead and eat the eggs, because the eggs are one of the healthiest foods that you can eat. One egg has 75 calories, but 7 grams of high quality protein, along with iron, vitamins, minerals, carotenoids. The egg is noted as a powerhouse of disease-fighting nutrients like lutein. So if you are in the business of eating eggs, and not everyone eats eggs, but if you want to eat eggs, you can eat eggs with a clear conscience. Now, here's the truth about buying organic. Spending the extra bucks on organic fruits and vegetables may help you to dodge the pesticides, and they may have more nutritional composition, but the long and short of it is that it really depends on the farmland where it is grown. So keep that in mind. It is not automatic that if it is organic, it is more nutritious. It always has to do with the ground in which the food is planted and grown. So if you are concerned about the quality of your produce and can't afford the price of going organic, opt instead for locally grown and seasonal items. And if you are still concerned about organic, think about looking up what we call the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. You can Google that, and the Dirty Dozen tells you the foods that are more likely to be sprayed with pesticides and things of that nature. Those are the ones that you definitely want to, if at all possible, buy as organic. So things such as berries, things such as tomatoes. You definitely want to buy those things as organic. They are always on the Dirty Dozen list. Whereas things such as coconut, you know, that's not going to be on the Dirty Dozen list, at least not as of today. You know, who knows with where the world is going? Probably everything is going to be on the Dirty Dozen list, and they won't be able to have a Dirty Dozen. It'll have to be the Dirty Dozen 100. But that's another topic. Any case. So, as I said, if you are not able to buy organic, then shop local. Even better yet, start growing your own food. Let's look back at those victory gardens from World War II. Everybody should have a little garden, right? And there have been many claims that eating small, frequent meals throughout the day can help you to increase your metabolism. Sorry to say, there is no evidence to back up this claim. The truth is that it is preferable to eat 2 to 3 meals per day, and make sure that you consider also the integration of what we call intermittent fasting, because it is very important for the body to rest from the heavy work of metabolizing your foods. Now, this may be true for Olympic and professional athletes, but the average person does not need to consume additional protein when working out. Most of us are already consuming more than what is recommended. The average person consumes 77.5 grams of protein in a day. That is 146% of the dietary recommended intake for a 145-pound adult. So now let's look at how much you actually need. Protein, like carbohydrates and fats, is a macronutrient. According to the National Institute of Health, the recommended daily allowance of protein intake is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, or 36 grams per pound, 0.36 grams per pound of weight. However, they also note that a healthy diet can consist of 10 to 35% protein. So here are some of the recommendations. Again, for a healthy adult or sedentary individuals, 0.8 gram of proteins for every kilogram. For a pregnant woman, you'll need a little bit more because, you know, you're eating for two, literally. Yes, 2 people for pregnant women. And so that is 1.1 gram for every kilogram. And if you're lactating, if you're nursing, you're going to need even more protein because now baby is even bigger than when he or she was inside of you. And so now you're going to need 1.3 grams of protein for every kilogram. If you're an endurance athlete, you also have a higher need, like 1.2 to 1.4 grams. If you're high intensity training, then you're going to need somewhere between 1.4 and 1.7 grams per kilogram. So it just varies based on what your needs are. And here's a list of common foods and their protein content. So 1 ounce or 28 grams of protein is equivalent to 1 ounce of meat, or 1 ounce of poultry, or 1 ounce of seafood, or a 1/4 cup of cooked beans, or 1 egg, or 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, or 1/2 ounce of seeds, or 1/2 ounce of nuts. So you can see how meat consumption can easily put you over your daily intake. So you have to be careful about how much meat you're eating if you are a meat eater. A 6-ounce steak, for instance, has 168 grams of protein, much more than what you need. So keep that in mind. All righty. Whew, I tell you, I know I covered a lot of information today. And if you have any questions, I'm here to help. So let's recap some of the 10 myths that we have debunked. Number 1, that all calories are created equal. Number 2, that carbs make you fat. Number 3, that healthy food is more expensive. Number 4, that gluten-free is always the way to go. Number 5, that low-fat foods are better for you. Number 6, that yogurt is good for the bacteria in your gut. Number 7, that egg yolks will raise your cholesterol. Number 8, that organic produce is the most nutritious. Number 9, that it is best to eat many small meals throughout the day. And number 10, that people who work out need extra protein. So, eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated, and it is possible on any budget. When planning your trip, avoid clipping coupons. They are typically only offered for processed items. Take inventory of what is already in your kitchen before you go shopping to avoid overbuying, which leads to food waste. Shop the perimeter of the store. This is where the healthier items live. The center of the store contains all of those boxed and processed foods that should always be avoided. Try new recipes or ways of cooking your favorite foods. Veggies can be prepared in a variety of ways, and look for local in-season produce. Replace high-fat proteins with plant-based options whenever possible. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I know that some of the information I provided may take a little time to sink in, so do not hesitate to ask questions.